All right. Welcome to today's episode of the Grigg and Rig podcast. It is March 8th, 2023. We haven't recorded here in a couple weeks, Grigg, but we're here again. Got a lot to talk about. Lots happened in the last 2 weeks in the wide world of sports that we follow.
A lot has happened. Might be going to jail, might be out for 50
Uh,
games.
what's your favorite nickname of his? I mean, I think Ja Warren is like the best one that I've heard.
I don't,
Just
Dude, all the pics of him like at his private school, and even at like Murray State, of him like wearing like the nerd spectacles and stuff. Like I've never seen those pics, so it was kind of funny. Like I didn't think like, is this all an act with him? Like is he just like
I
distracted
mean,
by
dude,
Memphis, and he's like, I don't
he is
know.
playing in Memphis. I'm certain he's just immersed himself within that culture. I mean, I'm sure he already had some element of that to an extent, but just with how hard he's been fronting over the last like year or two, it's gotten a bit much here. Like, I think I don't think any of the Memphis rappers would be like upset if Ja just kind of like fell back a bit and just stopped doing too much for the sake of the city and for the franchise. I mean, I don't think Key Glock or Moneybag Yo are gonna put up much of a fight for this guy just acting a fool on Instagram Live at 4 a.m. in a Denver strip club. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad we got the Ja hatred out of the way here. I think it's hilarious the current downfall of that franchise, but we
Was
need
that
them to win tomorrow. We need them to win tomorrow against the Warriors. So
big?
we got to get some.
Was that the highlight of your week when you saw that notification flash across your phone as your resident Grizzlies hater?
I will say, Griff, it was the highlight of my weekend until Sunday morning. We'll talk about this. We'll might as well cover the agenda for the pod today. But there was a big soccer match on Sunday morning that occurred between my favorite team and my favorite team's hated rivals. I think that bears worth talking about in a little bit here. But yeah, I mean, for starters, we'll definitely cover the NBA, the Western Conference, especially the bigger picture. Uh, Kind of a little update on the Wolves. It's been an interesting last couple of weeks for them since we recorded. I'm not sure, Griff, if we recorded before or after the Charlotte game after the break or not. But
It's been a
if we
while.
want to go,
I think it's
if
been
we
like
want to go,
2 weeks, so I don't think so.
so yeah, I mean, if you throw that game into the mix, it's just been a ridiculously up and down stretch, culminating in last night's Sixers loss, which I don't think, looking bigger picture, isn't as bad of a loss as maybe at the time when I was at the game. Actually, it seemed just a cold shooting night against a hot shooting team. Um, but yeah, we'll cover a lot of that, and then we'll move on to some Premier League talk. Lots changed, and Champions League, I should say. Talk about Champions League. There were some matches the last couple of days here. Lots to discuss with just some big matches that have happened recently. That Arsenal game was ridiculous with regards to the bigger picture with the title race, and yeah, we got to talk about Liverpool United, man. That carried me throughout this week so far. It's only Wednesday, but got a lot of juice flowing from that match still. So
Yeah,
looking forward to chopping it up about that. So
absolutely insane. That was that when that like headline flashed across my phone. It reminded me of the Barcelona like PSG score, where it's just like it takes a while for you to like it hits you kind of in waves, but it was just like considering the form of each team and like the magnitude of the fixture, and that even the last pod that we had, we were like gassed up United as like maybe they're a dark horse contender, or like they're for sure like staying in the top three. That was pretty
right,
shocking. But yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves. We should start with kind of the NBA and I think like the middling West at large first. The Wolves are
middle.
definitely a part of that. I guess you're at the game. You just want to like give some takes on the Sixers game.
Yeah, man. Buddy hit me up the day prior to the game, asked if I wanted to go, and worked out well that we got some pretty nice seats for a big national TV tilt. Sixers Wolves. I mean, us Wolves fans only really get to see the Sixers once a year at home, so they're one of the premier franchises currently in the league. Title contenders is another question, but I mean they're up there, I would say, right along that line. So cool matchup to watch. Obviously, as a Wolves fan all these years, there's always kind of been that rivalry between Cat and Embiid that began when their careers started as individuals that has really just not even become much of a contest anymore. Not even because Cat's missed most of this season, just in general. Embiid has just far surpassed any expectation of him in the sense of becoming just arguably an MVP this year.
Yep.
And just seeing him live, I mean, I had known that the Sixers they played a back to back. It was the second night of a back to back, so I figured Harden had rested too, which gave me more hope that we'd win that game. I figured that because they were so tired, that Embiid wouldn't really have quite the impact that he would on a rested night, And first half, it kind of played out that way. Early first half, I mean, when Nas Reed was in for the Nas Reed minutes, early second quarter, Embiid could have just taken him down to the cup like 3-4 times in a row, but didn't. He just kept settling for long range jumpers, mid range jumpers, and they weren't going in at the time. But then all of a sudden, once the Sixers caught fire, Maxey was ridiculous throughout that game, just burying our defenders, crossing them over, just hitting them with the step backs, creating for the team. And then Embiid just went Embiid full like MVP mode. Embiid just hitting step back threes, just fadeaway jumpers from like 24 feet, just ridiculous shots that weren't even, and they didn't even encapsulate his dominance that you would expect from him as an interior player because, I mean, he's so big, you figured he'd just feast down low. He was doing everything from all levels last night, and not to mention his interior defense. He stuffed, I think, at least 3 or 4 Wolves players throughout that night. So
He had a stretch like right before halftime that was pretty ridiculous. So I think he blocked like Ant shot, and then he hit like a deep like step back three like right before half. That kind of seemed to sink them a little bit, at least emotionally. Yeah, he was going off.
And speaking of emotional, from an emotional standpoint, Griff, I definitely was numbed by the end of the night, but I think my peak level of fury came end of second quarter when I saw that after the under 3 media timeout, that number 25, Austin Rivers, aka Doc's Make-A-Wish kid's son, was still in the lineup. He was still in the game, even though he had just played some of the worst minutes on the team for prior 3 minutes.
They're just gonna play him versus the Sixers, Vig. Come on. I mean, he respects Doc. Doc wants to see his son play. I think that's
why do we have to pander to Doc Rivers, man? What has Doc Rivers done besides win a title with Prime KG, Prime Pierce, Young Rondo, Ray Allen? This guy is a good coach. He's never gonna be a coach that just propels the team to a title. He, if anything, holds teams back. I don't think Chris Finch, if we're going to operate on that assumption, needs to give Doc this level of respect. But I'll fall back on Doc, though. I respect Doc as a person, just not as a coach. Those minutes, I mean, he played 4 to 5 minutes, I think, total, finished in minus 13 in the plus-minus category. Not that, again, that means that, Austin Rivers alone was the reason why we lost. There were still 4 other guys out there during that stretch, but man, we could not buy a bucket last night, dude. I mean, I thought after NAW hit a bank shot 3-pointer at the end of the first quarter that, okay, this bodes well for our role players tonight, shooting at the home gym back after a long West Coast trip. Thought it would go well, but I guess that was the peak of the night. I mean, actually, no, the true peak of the night was Ant just yamming on Jaden McDaniel's brother, Jalen. That was
sweet.
Insane.
That was
insane. Yeah. I almost missed it, too. I was just looking away, and then I turned right to the side towards the basket, right as he's just all about to elevate and just yams on him like that
in midair.
The
shift. Like
yeah, man. Energy really shifted. I actually I was when Jaden was having some offensive looks during the game, because Jalen and Jaden never played at any one point in the game against each other. Oh. I would sometimes look over to Jalen on the bench and just see what his reactions were. And when Jaden turned it over once, I was just looking over on the bench and Jalen was just kind of chuckling a little bit. I thought that was pretty funny. And then when, and then when Jaden hit a 3, I think Jalen was just kind of like shaking his head or something like that. That was kind of fun to see. Yeah. I was actually looking for Jaden on the bench after the dunk that Ant had to see if he had a reaction, but he was like in the way back. Couldn't see him. So it would have been fun to see his reaction in real time.
Knowing Jaden Vegas probably wasn't much of a reaction anyway. So
it's true. That guy's just stone cold as it gets. Yeah, man. I mean, the game kind of stunk in that sense. It wasn't a game where it felt like the fans were like disappointed in the team's effort as much. Like there wasn't really that much booing going on during the game. Maybe during the second quarter there was some, just because we just let that game completely slip at that point in the game. But from second half, when the Sixers continued to hit all their shots, it really wasn't anything that us fans could just be upset at our team about. We just didn't have a good night shooting. They had an incredible night. They shot like 60% from 3. It's ridiculous.
So. Yeah, honestly, man, I was kind of feeling for you because it seemed like probably one of the worst games of the season to go to, just because like they were up by like 15 pretty much the entire game, 15 to like 20, and then like, I mean, we talked about this, but like they kind of made that like run at the end, like the beginning of the fourth, the Wolves did to kind of get it down to 15. We're like, okay, like, it's like 10 minutes. Like this is like kind of where we need to make a run, and then yeah, it didn't happen. They pushed it back up. They were just hitting everything, man. I mean, like, even like the role players like Niang and like Melton were just like draining shots, and it just felt like we were just missing like open threes, open jump shots, getting blocked at the rim, poor transition offense.
Very poor. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of a yeah sluggy game, not great.
I think just real quick, one final, just to tie the bow on this game. One possession I think that really, I think looking back was a momentum changer. I kind of went back and watched the highlights of the game up until like the second quarter when things went haywire. But I saw that there was that possession. We're still up by two, I think, early in the second or midway through the second, and Philly gets 4 offensive rebounds on one possession and gets a Tobias Harris like layup. I think from a momentum standpoint, I'm not saying that had a big factor in it, but I think from just I don't know. I think looking back on that, maybe I'm just conflating things here. That seemed like a big play in the sense of we just let that possession slip. We could have gotten the board 3 different times, extended our lead a little bit. Didn't end up doing so. They tied on that possession. They never looked back from that point onward. We never led again. So
Yeah,
it's tough.
it was
But
super tight, like through the first quarter, and then like through that first shift of the bench unit, like the bench would like go up 5, Philly would tie it back up, then we'd go up like 5. But then once the starters came in for the last like 7, 6.5, they just were they up by like 15.5 or 12?
13. It should have been 12 because Ant got fouled on that buzzer beating layup, but they didn't call it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was 13. But yeah, man. I mean, how much more to write home about in that game? I think we'll. I was hoping in these next 2 games at home, we got the Nets on Friday, that we can bounce back and win that game. If we win, my expectation coming into this 2-game stand was that we win one of them probably.
yeah.
We win 2 is gravy, but yeah, man. I mean, big picture wise, I mean, tonight there's some results going for us. Tonight's the 8th of March, so right now we got the Mavs who lost to the Pelicans. That's a big result for us because the Mavs were a half game ahead before tonight. Um, the Thunder and the Suns. Thunder are kind of creeping behind our heels, and they're just in the mix. They're losing to the Suns by 25 right now. The Raptors Clippers game's pretty big because if the Clippers lose, they're losing currently, we'll remain the 6th seed. So even after kind of having a dud of a night last night, for us to not really theoretically lose ground would be pretty nice coming up here. And the Warriors play the Grizzlies tomorrow in Memphis, one of the worst road teams in the league, if not the worst road team, against one of the best home teams in the league, minus Ja, granted. But if the Grizzlies can do us a solid here, we might jump up to the 5 seed if the Clips lose tonight, and then that happens.
Didn't the
So
Grizzlies lose at home to somebody though?
they lost on the road to the Clippers and the Lakers, actually.
Yeah, that's
Something that
the rest of the Lakers at
couldn't be.
home, I think. Their last game, Vig.
Oh no, dude! Ja had like 30 points in the third quarter of that game. I remember that game. Like the Lakers Grizzlies game a week and a half ago. Ja had like a 28-point or 30-point third quarter. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I guess not everybody can beat the Lakers and the Clippers on the road, though, huh? Grizzlies couldn't do it. I think we should circle back to that road trip we just went on, man. I mean, that was. I don't know if it would. I don't know if we would say season defining in terms of just. It might not define the season in the end, but it might be one of the highs of the season when you look back on it, because as a franchise, we never win on the West Coast road trips like this to this level. Especially after that Warriors game that started everything. That was such a disappointing loss.
Yeah, and arguably the nadir of the season, which is hard to believe. I mean,
A lot of them.
yeah, it's just like because I was gonna say like, do you think that was the biggest like up and down of the whole season? But the season it's been so up and down, like it's almost hard to not like be trapped in the moment and like remember kind
Up
of
and down.
back.
Up and down since October, dude. Yeah, things just keep on ever present. It's just like it's like a sine wave from like trigonometry class, bro. Just constant,
Yeah.
just this. Like there's no like leveling out anywhere below or above. It's just right there in the middle. We're just mired in the mediocrity of the entire West. I mean, let's just encapsulate this properly. Basically, I mean the Grizzlies are kind of falling back to earth a bit now. I mean the
Yeah.
Sacramento 2 seed, but when you cut it off from Phoenix down below, Phoenix is 36-29. The Warriors all the way down to the Jazz are only separated by 3 games in the standings. I don't know if this late in the season I've ever seen that amount of just parity, mediocrity, whatever you want to call it, for that many teams this late in the season. So it's really just a feeding frenzy out there, and everybody's going to beat up on each other for this last month of the season too. I mean, the Wolves only have 15 games remaining, and there's not much time left to just separate yourself. But and not to mention with the Wolves coming up here, got a lot of Eastern Conference games coming up, so we can't really make up ground directly against our opponents for a bit here. So got to depend on some game results to go our way. But just real quick though, I think we should talk a bit more about that road trip. I mean, Clippers at home, or Clippers away, I should say, coming off that, as you said, arguably the nadir of our season, that Warriors game. I mean, the game that we had in our clutches against an undermanned squad, just let it go. I honestly, I even after watching most or the whole game, can't remember how exactly we blew that game. Just poor crunch time offense is like my main takeaway from that game. But and also letting Dante DiVincenzo just go in nuclear on us. I don't know where that came from, but
He's having a nice
with the
year.
Clippers, yeah, he's been a sneaky good ad. But for the Clippers game, just the way that transpired, just not having a good offensive game as we've had happen so often this season, but just sticking to our wits defensively. I mean, that was arguably Jaden's breakout game. You could argue Jaden McDaniels. He had like 20 points in that game. Stellar defense on Paul George and Kawhi. And Ant just took turns helping out there. I mean, it was a team effort, of course. I mean, Slomo played good defense. NAW also, he's been a revelation. But that game was huge, also on a national TV setting, so more people got to see the excellence of Jaden, which further lends credence to how that could have been his breakout game. And then the Lake show on Friday, I mean, they didn't have D'Lo or LeBron. They were not going to have LeBron for a while, but to go into there with kind of some of the juice that they had riding on their backs, with just, oh, we can make our way up to the play-in with this win or something. And if they won, I think they would have only been, I want to say, a half game behind us in the standings.
Yeah,
Like if we lost that game, we would have been stuck in like the 9-10 range, I think, for a while
it
here.
was a bigger game for them than it was for us, and honestly, it was a pretty comfortable win. Like it felt like we were leading like pretty much the entire game. Like Davis kind of quieted down after like a monster first quarter. Um, and then like we finally like executed. I think the coolest thing about the 3 game road trip was like there had been all this talk about like the struggles of like the late game offense for like, I mean, the Charlotte, like losing at home against Charlotte, like the Wizards game where you lose at home, then like you collapse against Golden State. So you have like 3 awful offensive clutch time performances. And then you win 3 games in the clutch against like pretty good opponents, or at least ones that are
Yeah.
hot. That was like really, really like positive. And I think like so often though with like our this season is like we win 2 or 3 in a row, and you start wanting to like do this like trend line of like, okay, like these last 3 games, like we've been better in the clutch, or like we're playing better defense, or like Jaden's hot, and it's just like, I mean, like we've talked about, it just kind of like goes back down, because at the end of the day, I just think like this team just doesn't have a lot of room for error. With Cat out, they just don't have the offensive firepower. If Jaden doesn't have a good game, I mean, Ant has to have like a good game, but we need like secondary scoring now, and with Jaden and like Mike Conley's like your secondary scorers, it's like it's a little bit dicey. So they got to win off the back of their defense, or yeah, have good offensive games.
Yeah, I mean, Mike's peak as a brief, and there's a brief time as a Timberwolf. His peak was that end of the Laker game. I mean, as you said, it was comfortable for about 3.5 quarters. Then the Lakers just caught fire and really cut into our lead. I was rapidly losing hope just because of the way it was going. I didn't know who was going to create for us, just because obviously they have Vanderbilt on Ant. I mean, Vanderbilt did a great job against Ant. Ant really didn't get it going at all that night. And so for Mike to hit that shot when we're up 3 with a minute left, shot clock expiring, like that won the game right there for us.
Yeah,
Just
it
a
did.
massive shot. And he parlayed that into a Saturday night showing where he had, I think, 5 or 6 threes in that game, 24 points. I mean, that's why I'm not as upset, Griff, about the Sixers loss, because that game where we just did not shoot well at all kind of was canceled out by how well above average that we shot against the Kings. We shot like 60%, I think, throughout that game. It was
Yeah.
138, 134. Like, that's a ridiculous scoreline for a regulation ending NBA game. Even in 2023, that's still really ridiculous. So, I mean, for us to outshoot by far the best offensive team in basketball like that in their gym, and they're on I mean, we were on a back to back too. They had a back to back as well, but they were at home. So it's a little different. And we're on the road in California. We play in Minnesota. It's a big deal. Like, away from home for a week, finishing it up. I'm thinking about it mentality wise. It's like you're about to go home. You've been out on the road. I mean, obviously, probably the nicest road trip you could go on, like just place wise, for a whole week. you're kind of just like itching to like get out of here, you know. And you put up that performance against the Kings, who are now the 2 seed in the West, just outgunned them in their own game. That's just such a good win. I tweeted that on our
probably the best win of the season, right? Yeah, best win of the season. I mean, and again, like coming after the nadir, so it's just like up and down. But I think another great thing about it's just been like, I mean, nauseating, honestly. Like, but another thing that was great about the 3-game road trip was that it felt like sustainable in a sense, which again is kind of silly, like taking like the big picture look. But I felt like when we were winning in the past pre All-Star break, it was just off the backs of like Ant going absolutely nuclear and like D'Lo like having the best shooting performances of his life. And like Ant's kind of slowed down a little bit. Like he's not like averaging like 32, 8, and 8 now. It's more like
more off ball too. Yeah, he's been more off ball because Mike's there now.
Right, which makes sense. Like his usage is going to go down. But like like Rudy's getting like 18 a game now. Like Jaden has been scoring more. Nah off the bench. Like Nas. Like it's more people like pitching in, and they played, except for the sack game, like pretty good defense as well. It just felt like a winning formula for this team.
Yeah. I mean, dude, that 9-man rotation we've kind of rolled out the last, excluding the Sixers game, the last 2-3 games that we won on the West Coast. Like our bench unit looked like Prince, Nah, J-Mac, Nas, those guys with the starting 5. I mean, that's pretty nice when it comes to defense. You got very well-rounded perimeter defense right there with Nah. Prince is a good defender. He plays more down lower, can be a swingman defender. Slomo's been a very underrated defender this year, I think. I didn't think he'd be this good of a defender coming into the year.
He's like 95th percentile or something, I think. And
he's just so unassuming. Yeah, dude, that's great. It's just this is the nature of him as a player. You just underestimate him because he's just kind of just like a slow plodding figure, kind of skipping to the beat of his own drum. But man, he gets the job done on both ends.
I mean, he's having a career year, I think, too, Vig.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if he's ever gotten an opportunity to this extent, this late into his career, where he's like a more wowie veteran in his like throughout his career. I mean, in Memphis, he didn't even play most games or some games. He just would play spot minutes here and there off their bench as like a deep reserve. So for him to start while Cat's been out all this time, it's going to be interesting to see how his role transitions once we, how it seems, end up reincorporating Cat into the lineup. I think we can maybe segue a bit into that, you think? Or talk a little more about
I think so. I guess I just wanted to ask you about the bench and like bench scoring. Like, do you think that's going to be an issue kind of down the stretch? Because I think that was one of the biggest problems in the Philly game, was that if Nas isn't going, it's like there's not a lot of offensive weapons there. If you have like, if it's Nas, Slow-Mo, J-Mac, Nah, and Prince, like Prince can get hot, and like usually he's good for like, I don't know, 10 a game or something on decent volume. But it's just like, especially with Noel out, there's just like not a lot of offensive, like create your own shot, I guess, on that bench unit.
So the thing with Nas, Griff, is that when he has a good game, he's awesome. He's almost unguardable on offense when he's on. But when he's not, the reason why he's still a bench player to an extent is like he's just not all the way there consistency wise. I mean, yesterday was not a good game for him. I mean, honestly, he was still probably like our 3rd best player in that game because of how bad everybody else was.
Yeah.
But when his game is off, I mean, it's just not going to work out because he would be a guy in that Warriors game, he carried us against them. The Clipper game, when we had those, because the way Finch structures his rotations, as we know, is that he likes to play usually an all bench lineup plus Slow-Mo at the beginning of the second quarter and the beginning of the fourth quarter for several minutes until right around that under 7 media timeout. And in those lineups, when Nas isn't on, it's just usually we're just kind of in a black hole offensively. Now here's where I think with the potential inclusion of Cat here in the next, I don't know when the hell he's going to come back. I mean, he might just start practicing this week, I think, but let's just say 2 weeks conservatively, like minimum 2 weeks. If he comes back around that time, I mean, I don't know who will be playing in 2 weeks. I think if I had to estimate, maybe Toronto or Chicago, that I could see him. I'm not Finch, obviously, but I would consider for maybe the first couple games, if not more, maybe trying to play Cat if not start him. I mean, they'll probably start him just because he's Cat, but play him with that lineup. Play him with that early second quarter, early fourth quarter lineup. Basically replace him with Nas, or replace Nas with him, sorry. Or even replace Slow-Mo with Cat in that sense. Keep Nas and Cat out there. I know two big lineups don't work well, but okay, maybe not because their defense would be terrible with those two out there.
Nas and
I'm just
Cat
a
have
little
never
brainstorming.
been good together, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm brainstorming. I'm overstepping there a little bit, but I think switched out Nas for Cat in those specific lineups, it could be very intriguing to see how Cat fits in with the guys around him who, besides Nah, he's already very familiar with. I think he'd be able to just kind of mesh in pretty well with them. You would expect Noel to come back soon enough for, as you said, I mean, him being out definitely is as frustrating and mind-numbingly just not smart of a player as he's been this year. He would be a guy who could provide a spark offensively in those situations where our bench isn't producing in those stretches of the game, early fourth, early
For
second
sure.
quarter. So, but with Cat though specifically, I would like to see that, Griff. I think whether he's on the bench, coming off the bench to begin with or not, just him playing with that specific lineup could be interesting because we get more than enough offensive spark to kind of help stem the tide for a few minutes while Jaden and Rudy, Mike are out. Um, yeah, just because I think that these four guys just mentioned, the starters minus Slow-Mo, they've only had a few games to play with each other, but I think they definitely developed some sort of chemistry over that road trip that we just had where we won 3 important games, got to just really build off each other in those games and those wins. And I think inserting Cat right into that right away, like just having him solely like staggering his minutes specifically with those guys could be detrimental to start with. I think it might be nice to just work Cat in with some guys he's more familiar with, or have Finch experiment with rotations more. I don't know.
It's
What are your
it's
thoughts?
it's tough either way. Big, I think the biggest dilemma like Finch has is like on one hand, like you need minutes with like Cat and Rudy on the floor together. Like that is the most important thing, and which is, I mean, that's the biggest problem with this whole season is like we don't know how the Twin Towers has worked. You just haven't seen it long enough. So on one hand, like you really, really want to see Cat and Rudy together. On the other hand, inserting Cat into the lineup like after he's been out for, I mean, X amount of games is probably not gonna. He's probably gonna be pretty rusty for like at least like 3 or 4 games. So it's probably
Yeah.
safer to throw him in onto the bench unit because the starting unit, for the most part, has been pretty good like the entire year. Um, so you're kind of balancing each. It's like, do you want to win now, like by putting him on the bench and then eventually easing him back in, or do you just like screw it, like, this is kind of a lost season anyway, in some respects. Let's just like throw him in the starting unit and just like see how like what we got here. Um, it's really
Yeah.
tough. I don't know what
I
they're
mean,
gonna do. I think they will start Cat just because I think they just really have to see those minutes together. But they'll definitely like probably take him out, probably be the first sub out, and then like pair him with the bench units because him and McLaughlin have been really really good together in the past as a 2-man unit. Even though J-Max really struggled actually, like these games too. But
yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the thing. If you, based on those two scenarios that you presented, I think I'd go with the former one, the one where we just work Cat and ease him in for a few games. It's not like we're talking about the whole season in the playoffs that he's going to come off the bench, or even starting him and then, yeah, as you said, bringing him out early right away, being the first sub out. And I mean, that would affect the rotation that Finch currently has with taking out Rudy and Mike right away too. But they'll figure that out when the time comes. But I think the thing is though, when we look again, just long term with the way this trade was structured, with the intentions of what it was trying to bring, is that it seems like it's meant to get Ant and Jaden, our two young franchise cornerstones, into big games early in their careers. And I think to just basically not entirely negate that by throwing Cat right into the mix, but just in my opinion, I think we should prioritize winning as much as we can this season, like instead of considering it a lost season, because I think an overarching purpose of why Tim Connolly did that trade was to get these guys big game minutes early on in their careers. And just because it's unfortunate Cats had to miss 60 games this season, or not 60, that's like 40. But point being, like, he's missed a ton of the season, and we shouldn't just sacrifice those guys' potential with just getting big game minutes in playoff situations by throwing Cat into something that we thought would come to fruition after starting in October and playing for 2-3 months. versus now he's been out for 4 months. Needs to reintegrate himself into a team that's already kind of new from the D'Lo trade. And yeah, man, it's going to be really fascinating now. I mean, before today, Griff, I had no hope that Cat would come back this season anymore. I kind of lost all of it. But Finch went on, I think it was Paul Allen's show today on The Fan or something. I just saw the comments that were summarized about it, but said that Cat should be returning today to practice or walk through today and then practice tomorrow. So that's a big development. I mean, that gives so much more optimism that he would actually return this season. And I don't want to get into too much about the whole optics of the situation, how kind of, I would say, mismanaged it's been by both sides, by Cat and the team. Yeah. We don't need to get too much into that now. I'd rather talk about how the fit might work. But yeah, it's going to be really fascinating, man. And I think just putting that up against what we have in front of us with this Western Conference playoff picture and these next 4 weeks are going to be spicy.
I think you can sum up the whole like Cat timeline and injuries just saying it's just a giant like clusterfuck. Honestly, it's just like no transparency. It's just been confusing. It's been even like the players are like giving like they're confused. They're like we don't know when he's come back either. Like it's just a mess. But we don't want to like speculate too much on it because we haven't heard anything about it. Just that there's no timeline. So.
Yeah, it's just merely the thing that I feel like most NBA franchises aren't this up in the air about what goes on with their star player's injury. Like when Steph just had his injury for the Warriors, they were giving periodic updates like a competent team for the most part would do. Not saying we're incompetent completely. We have a lot of demons to get rid of still with this franchise, but I wouldn't say it's been handled well by us. So
no.
And let's see. I mean,
I don't know. There's definitely like something else going on while they're not given a timeline, and yeah, we don't know what it is yet. We'll probably find out like once the season's over. So, but until then, I mean, we're still in the mix, right? I mean,
we are.
Everybody is like so up and down. Like, if you think the Wolves have been up and down, like I mean, every team that is kind of within this like 4 to 13 range has been like either super hot for stretches and like they've lost a bunch. Like, well, the Jazz started like 9-2. The Lakers started like 2-10. Clippers were like third. They were like 6 games over 500. Now they're like. They're going to go a game under, I think, if they lose tonight or something. So
speaking of the Clippers, halftime update, it's 49-49 at halftime. That's a very low scoring half right there. I mean, the Wolves-Sixers game was like 36-31 at the end of the first quarter yesterday, and that game's 49-49 at half. So they got a slogfest going on. I mean, as we talked about a bit earlier, I mean, the kind of schedule results that we wanted tonight have gone in our favor so far. I mean, the Mavs lost. The Thunder are about to lose. They're kind of nipping on our heels. By the way, this does not affect us, but Denver's getting stomped by the Bulls right now at home. Yeah, Bulls are up by 20, and the Nuggets are playing everybody. So that's a fascinating result right there.
That's insane.
Maybe I don't know if you caught any of the JJ Redick, Kendrick Perkins stuff going on. I mean, I think both of those guys I think were idiotic with like how hard they were going at each other, but the fucking the alt-right mob that's supporting Jokic now. It's kind of hilarious. Like it kind of makes you want to see the Nuggets just fail in spectacular fashion in the playoffs and just see the slander that Jokic would receive if he wins back-to-back MVPs. I'm just a hater. Dude, I'm just a hater when it comes to non-Wolves stuff. Like I love to see guys fail in the sense of like just a guy winning 3-time MVP for not. I mean, I know playoff results don't matter much in the grand scheme of MVP voting, but there was voter fatigue when Giannis won MVP. And I don't know. I honestly would rather have Giannis win it this year than Jokic. But we'll see what ends up happening with that. I think, anyway, not to detract too much from the Wolves stuff we were talking about. I had to chip in on the Jokic slander going on social media right now. It's pretty hilarious.
There's been a lot of talk about this whole Jokic MVP case. Like, it does kind of make you wonder if, you know, like, if Embiid, like finishes really strong, I could see giving it to him just because he's been runner up the last couple of years.
For him to win it, man.
He has. I mean, he'll have the narrative if he finishes strong.
I mean, even Ant in his postgame said yesterday that's the MVP right there. So I mean, Ant knows all. I'll give him credit for that. I mean, I just don't want to see. I don't know. I like Jokic as a player, man. It's hard not to like him, but I just personally don't think this season he should win that, especially with a fully loaded Nuggets team, and the Bucks have a better record than them. So anyway, But yeah, man, we got a spicy 4 weeks coming up here. Results are going our way. I mean, if the Clippers lose tonight again and the Warriors lose tomorrow, we'll be the 5 seed for at least 12 hours. So pretty fascinating. We got a lot
So
It's
stupid.
gonna be a lot of ups and downs. These season long graphs are gonna be pretty interesting, showing teams moving up and down, up and down. It's gonna be really fun to
I don't
watch.
think I've done more standings watch Vig in my like in the last like 20 years combined of the NBA. It's like literally every night I check the NBA like Western Conference standings. It's just like, oh, like we're not to 10th, now we're up to 7th, now we're up to like it's
Yeah, yeah.
and of course every fan base is like, oh, if we won one more game, we'd be like 5th right now, or like if we like, it's like, yeah, but you didn't, and like everybody is like this. Like, what's kind of like,
Yeah,
I don't know if we're gonna look back at this season and we're gonna be like, wow, everyone was just like so like everyone was like pretty good and his parity was super high, or if we're gonna be like, nah, like nobody was really that good and it's just kind of like a mediocre mush like in the middle of the West there.
yeah, yeah, man. It'll be fun to see. I mean, we'll obviously talk about it soon. Here, we'll be talking mostly Wolves the rest of the way. I feel like with how tight this season is coming down to. So yeah,
Maybe
I
the
mean,
Wild for like 10 minutes.
we'll get to the. I know you Grigg and Rig hockey listeners are just waiting for us to talk about the Wild. We'll get to there at some point. Someday we'll get.
They're
To,
they're
someday we'll
they're
get.
a legion of hockey fans. This is the state of, well, you're in the state of hockey, so
You're in Montana, bro. You're in a ski bump territory right
I
there.
am. There's
Y'all go
nothing.
ski.
There's no pro sports here. It's rodeos and wrestling out here. It's a
Hey,
little
that's
different.
true. I kind of want to go to a rodeo someday. I, for one, have never been to one. The energy there can be quite enthralling.
It
But
is. I
but you
agree.
know what? This isn't a rodeo podcast, so we'll
Not
fall
yet.
back on the rodeo. But I think we can maybe segue into some soccer here.
Yeah,
Start talking about that.
sure. Why not? Let's get into it.
Um,
You want to talk
I
about
want
your
to hear.
team?
Let's talk about your team first. I
No, 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 no.
more recent. The wound's a little more fresh. I just want to hear your perspective, Griff, on your Tottenham Hotspur today. Champions
So,
lost,
yeah.
drew against Milan. They didn't lose, but they
So,
lost.
yep. So they were down 1-0 on aggregate. They have everything to play for at home. Everyone's healthy except Boris, but who knows if that's good or bad.
Yeah, Fraser Forster. I did not expect to see him starting a Champions League game. It was weird.
No one did, but there he is. Cut a clean sheet. Um, no, I saw this stat that I think it's the first time in 147 games that there's been a goalless draw at a Tottenham Hotspur when they're at home. So,
Really?
yep.
Oh,
So not good timing for that. It's just, I mean, I would say I'm disappointed, and I am a little bit, but I just kind of expected this. Like I just didn't think they had it in them. The entire year, man, it's just been like that they can like string some results together, but like in like the big games that have like mattered and that they need to get a result, they just haven't been able to do it. The only game I can think of off the top of my head that they've like really needed to win or gets like a big opponent they won was they beat Man City, but they always just seem to have Man City's number for whatever reason.
oh, yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean they lacked ambition. It was a horrible game to watch. It was just,
Right. Yeah.
I don't know, drab. Like they just Conte like loves Hoiberg, in the middle. Even though like Sarr like was really good in that last Champions League game. Like they have the talent up front. Like, but Richarlison hasn't really been the same since the World Cup. He didn't really have a
Has
great game.
oh he came in the game? I was gonna say I feel like Conte hasn't given him much of an opportunity, but did he come in today?
He
I
did.
didn't know.
Yeah, he wasn't great when he came in. Solon has like been pretty bad this year after like being the Golden Boot like co-winner last year.
I was gonna say, Griff, looking through the team sheet right now, I think it's very funny that Spurs pipped Everton for the signing of Danjuma, and he's just there on the bench, doesn't do anything. He's just kind of just there. I think it's pretty funny. But
I
go
think
on.
I think it's just becoming like increasingly apparent that like Conte is not a good match for the club. The whole like ethos of the club for the last like 10 years, which has kind of like brought them up from mid-table to like a top 4 squad and like argue a top 10 team in Europe, has been about developing young players, playing like bright and exciting like young football, attacking football, kind of like what you're seeing from Arsenal right now. I mean, that's kind of the Spurs model, or it used to be. That's where they had all their success, and I think they saw their success under Poch, and then they try to like switch into this like, okay, now we want to be like an established like club, and so they bring in these like older kind of established managers in Mourinho and Conte, and they just like haven't been able to like kind of match their ethos about like win now, like veteran players, like bringing those kind of people in and winning. They haven't been able to do it, um, which in some ways is yeah, it's kind of shitty. Like, are we just always going to be like a good but not like elite team that's just like not a feeder club, but like just like kind of a stepping stone for a player to like go on to like the top clubs or not? Impossible to say. Maybe Pochettino will come back. There's rumblings about that, but yeah, I think Conte is probably going to be on the way out after this one.
Well, he's a dead man walking. Yeah, he's not going to coach that team for much longer. I mean,
Yep.
It would be pretty ironic for them to bring Poch back the same summer that Kane possibly leaves once and for all. That would be.
Yeah.
I mean, the rumblings have been there with that guy for 3 years that he would leave, and it hasn't happened yet. He's been a loyal servant to the club, broke the club record for goals pretty recently here. But yeah, man, I'm working. I didn't watch any of the games this week, Champions League, but I did see the highlight of Kane's shot that Maignan saved, that header at the stoppage time. That would have been that's probably the best chance of the game, I would assume, considering I'm looking at the stats. They had 2 shots on target total.
And it wasn't even that close. Like, I mean, it was a good chance, but like pretty comfortable save, like from a free kick. You know, it's just I don't know.
Yeah, Milan are good.
They're
I mean,
good.
they obviously won the league last year, but I mean, you would think with the team that Spurs has, they have a lot of good guys. I mean, great attack, as you've mentioned. They just could put up more of an effort offensively than this at home. Second leg must win. You just need 1 goal to go to extra time. Like, not too much to ask. It's not like they have to score 3 at the Bernabeu or something. But, but yeah.
I mean, look at Chelsea yesterday. You know, they were 1-0 deficit coming in, hadn't scored at all, and they were able to pull through. So
they provided the blueprint. They provided the blueprint for Spurs, and they just didn't really do it in terms of getting that second home fixture. But I mean, props to Chelsea. I mean, I don't like to give Chelsea too much praise, but I mean, respect to them for winning that match.
I was surprised. I thought Dortmund were gonna sneak through. So
yeah, man. Now let the Jude sweepstakes begin. I guess they are in a league title chase, but I mean, they're gonna have an interesting summer on their hands here. But yeah, I mean, I didn't check the score of the. Oh, I mean, we should talk about Bayern PSG. We should definitely talk about that. I was gonna say, what was the other game today, and I lost my mind completely.
Yep.
Yeah, Bayern
2-0 at home, 3-0 on aggregate. I didn't see the game either because I was watching the Spurs game, but everything I read was that it was pretty much a drubbing. Not a drubbing, but they kind of actually the Spurs-esque in PSG's performance. They didn't really have much of an attack going forward. Their like big chance was against like I think it was a Vitinha shot that Delit cleared off the line.
Oh, he cleared it. I saw the pictures of that. Yeah. I saw the pictures.
Yeah,
that was a good
that was it. And then second half, Choupo-Moting. I think Verratti lost the ball like in his own half, and then Choupo-Moting scored. And then Gnabry scored to make it 3-0. But yeah, PSG out in the first round of the Champions League for 5th time in the last 7 seasons. So
yep. Both of Messi hasn't won Champions League knockout tie PSG yet. I mean, even without Neymar, who's missing the rest of the season now, they still have 2 of the best attackers, greatest of all time, and future potential greatest of all time on the same team. Yeah. And they couldn't muster up a single goal in the whole tie. It's pretty disappointing. I definitely think PSG, as top heavy as they are, could do well in investing in an actual midfield sometime in this next decade here. I mean, it's been a decade already of this. Like, get some guys, dude. I mean, Verratti's
okay. Verratti's probably.
You have Vitinha. You have Vitinha, Bobby, and Ruiz running your midfield, and those guys are fine. But if you want to win a Champions League like PSG has had that ever so glorious ambition of doing for this long, I think the guys gotta. I don't know what they're gonna do with that, but I mean, build a better team around them for fuck's sake. But that's what I would say.
It is kind of mind numbing that like more people have kind of figured that out. That like building like a rock solid midfield is like your best way to win European football. I mean, you can look in the Madrid blueprint, right? I mean, you have Modric, Casemiro, Kroos for the last 10 years. And I mean, they've just been consistently dominant. Like blowing all this money on the like high-end attackers, like I mean, like it's great. Like you need them, like you do, but like in terms of like consistency, I just like to get like a great midfield in there. I think is like of utmost importance. And anytime like you see like a or just a team succeed in the Champions League, it's always because they have they're dominating their midfield pretty much.
That's what makes City's Champions League ineptitude so funny because they've had such a boss midfield for several years with Gundogan, De Bruyne. Now they have Rodri instead of Fernandinho. He's sick. I mean, Bernardo Silva. They just got so many guys they can just throw in there who are really good. Foden sometimes plays in midfield. Like them not being able to win it yet.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, it doesn't happen this year, but for them not being able to win it yet, it's been pretty funny.
To be fair to City, like they've the last okay, maybe not like all of those like great midfield teams. Like the last like 3 or 4 years, they've been like, I mean, they've made it to like the last what 8, like 3 years in a row or something, and they should have went to the finals last year. So, but
Yeah.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. It is a good point. I mean, yeah, it's two knockout fixtures. Some of it's I don't want to say it's dumb luck because like there's definitely teams like Real Madrid who are it's like well they've won so many times.
It's voodoo magic with them. That's just like dark arts.
It is. Yeah,
it
is weird. It is weird.
But yeah, man. I mean, next week should be spicy. I think the City Leipzig tie will be the most interesting.
Yes.
I mean, obviously Liverpool Madrid will be, but I just think with the scoreline of that tie, it's just not should be expected that it's just going to be a tight finish. Whereas City Leipzig is a dead heat right now, so that'll be pretty interesting to see. But yeah, dude, let's quickly segue into some Prem talk then. Let's get into it, man. 7-0.
Yeah.
7-0, baby. I mean,
this is your time.
Shout out to Brandon Rucker, man. I know he's somewhere out there. He's been a frequent guest on this pod. Would have been fun to have him on to share in this glory. But man,
he tried.
He will never walk alone, man. He will never walk alone, and neither will I, because that was the highlight of my weekend. Arguably probably the highlight of my season.
I thought you said that was a highlight of your life. Like I thought that was where you were going.
I mean, dude, I did text you that afternoon that like that was like one of the most satisfying like experiences of my soccer fandom that I've ever had. I mean, I don't give a shit about how in the grand scheme of things insignificant it might be, where 3 points is 3 points. Oh, United, if they lost 1-0, it's no different than them losing 7-0. Dude, there's levels to it, bro. There's levels to it in a rivalry that big when you've been getting all this shit talked to you about how United are like gonna just stop us at like our home ground, do a number on us. Rashford, best player in the world in form. Shaw, best in form left back in the world. Bruno, just ace captain of the Manchester United Red Devils. Ten Hag, best manager in the world. Get that shit out of here, man. They're not there yet. I respect United for getting back to like some semblance of stability. Like they're a good team. They're not a team that you can just kind of scoff at anymore. They got Casemiro, for fuck's sake, bossing that midfield. But I will say, for one afternoon in Anfield, he did not boss the midfield. And our midfield played really good considering what my expectations were coming into that game, with Fabinho putting in a vintage performance, Harvey Elliott proving me, resident Harvey Elliott hater, wrong.
You're a hater. Okay, good to know.
I'm like borderline hater. I'm not going to say I'm like a strong hater. It's just like I don't know if I see him as like a long-term fit on this team like a few years down the line, but he put in a great showing. I mean, his creativity just running down the flank. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure who would have been marking him in that situation. Fred or something, or Casemiro. They didn't have good games. I think everybody on our team had a good game. I don't think anybody had a bad game. I mean, it was about as perfect of a performance that Klopp could have expected from this roster. I mean, Gakpo, his finishing, man. It was very Thierry Henry-esque, those goals he scored. I don't think that's hyperbole in terms of just the way he scored, just like the fashion of cutting in like that, just pelting it outside corner like that. And then the second finish, dude, that was ridiculous. Like that little chip over De Gea.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you watched the highlights or not.
I did, yeah, I did. It felt like this was kind of the breakout performance everyone was kind of waiting for from Gakpo. And like what a great time to have it. I mean, yeah. 2 amazing goals. I mean, like Salah like breaking the goal scoring record, like 2 in that game, like absolutely incredible. I mean, literally like in dreamland. I mean, I can't even imagine like the euphoria.
That's just like a game that will be talked about in the city of Liverpool for decades to come. Like in terms of just you're beating your biggest rival, by far your biggest rival. I don't care about the Merseyside derby when it comes to like comparing yourself with United.
Come on.
Like I'm sorry, Everton. I'm sorry. You guys just aren't there. But yeah, dude, just the sheer scope of what that means for not just in the short term this season, but just having something to just joke about and like mess around with United fans about for this long. It'll be hard for them to live that down for a little while, especially if we're only 7 points back of them, Griff. We're not that far behind them. I'm not saying we're going to catch up to them. They'll still finish third, but I'm just saying like it's not like they're significantly better than we are, even though they're having their arguably best season of the last 6-7 years, whereas we're having our worst season in that same time frame and
Yep.
scoring a literal touchdown.
They have a long way to go, man, and it was definitely a case of like a fan base kind of falling in love with their team a little bit too much and like a little bit too hyped up.
They won a trophy the week prior too. That's what makes it sweeter that they had just come off this high, and then for us to just bring them down to earth with that performance. And the thing is, dude, it was close. It was tied for half the game.
Yeah,
too.
It was like it was crazy.
They didn't play that bad. They didn't play that badly for the first 40 minutes. We came out firing the first 20 minutes. Which the thing is, Griff, we like to do. Liverpool likes to do that a lot. They just come out firing in the beginning, and it's a lot about teams stemming the tide during that time, and then kind of working their way back into the match for the end of the first half. In that game, United had some great chances from like the 30th minute to 40th minute. Bruno had that header that just went wide. Rashford had that ball that he should have done better with, the long ball that got to his foot that he one timed and it shot right at Allison. He could have done better with that, in my opinion. Those are their two best chances. After that, I think tactically you definitely have to question Ten Hag for playing Rashford centrally up top as opposed to putting him on the left flank, where, as we saw in the Old Trafford fixture back in August, he demonized Trent over the course of that game. Everybody has the book on Trent in regards to how to approach him as a defender. I don't know why they decided to start Weghorst and have Fernandez play out in the left wing instead and have Rashford up top. It tactically just seemed a little bit like doing too much, I think.
Yeah.
That.
A little too cute.
I think with Bruno, man, he's not captain material. That show of petulance, just him walking around.
Fuck Bruno.
Like there was a counterattack, I think it was early second half or maybe late first half. He was jawing with Allison after something had happened, like when they were attacking. He just walks back, like he saunters back to midfield when Liverpool have the ball up on the left flank. Robertson has it like attacking, like there's like controlling possession. It is 11v10 or 10v9 in that moment because Bruno is just walking back at his own pace, not even putting forth an effort. And that goes without saying him pushing the ref at the end of the match. Like he didn't like push him, but he shoved him. Like that's a red card in many games, like in many matches. Refs will give you a red for that. And he got nothing for that. He was just an arrogant little brat. Couldn't handle the moment, what was going on around him. The whole team was rattled after, I wouldn't say the Darwin goal alone rattled them, the first Darwin goal, which made it 2-0, but I think the Gakpo one, which made it 3-0, just them scoring, or us scoring again in just such quick fashion, that kind of just killed their like energy and hope, I think, for the rest of
the last two goals especially were like really, really rough on their end. Or it really seemed like they just like kind of lost some brain power there mentally. Like they like shot like that weird at the seventh goal where like Shaw like tried to clear it back to De Gea and then it was just like this awkward like
that was the sixth. That was
the sixth. It was just like dumb shit. It's just really just like it gave the air of like his kind of like desperation and kind of like just not giving up, but like they don't care as much because like they're just so soundly beaten. And that's why that argument about like 1-0 3 points to 7-0 3 points, like the emotional impact of that game for like both teams of a 1-0 loss versus a 7-0 loss, like could not be like different. Like for all we know, like this 7-0 like win could like propel Liverpool to like finish fourth and like ManU to spiral because like that's just like the psychological damage or like positive like effect it can have on like each team's like this. It's just it's 7-0. Like it's insane. I mean, look at Brazil, Germany, bro. I mean, like
that was a World Cup semifinal at home, but yeah, same point stands with how I can
not quite the same, but it's
yeah, dude. I mean, the thing I will say, a comedic moment at the seventh goal, like the true seventh goal with Bobby scoring that, was Dalot standing in the goal trying to goal line clear it. He wasn't even on the line; he was in the goal already. That was pretty comedic to look at. I think just the statistics behind United's performances in Anfield lately have been pretty funny. I think over their last, I don't know what the span is. It might be either 7 to 10 matches. Their last matches at Anfield, Liverpool have outscored United 29-2 in those matches at home against
Jesus.
them.
Wow.
Like, even with how good they've been this year, that's what makes it funny to me. That I mean, I'm not saying I was keeping tabs on every United fan what they were saying coming into this match. I wasn't, but I definitely got a sense of just arrogance coming into this match that, oh, Liverpool stink this year, which objectively, yes, we have stunk this year. That, oh, we're just going to walk in there and beat them. Like, have you not seen your club's recent history in this ground? Like, you can't just expect that, especially in a derby fixture, man. Like, even with how much better Liverpool have been over Everton the last few years, those matches are never gimmies at Goodison. Never. And to just come into Anfield thinking, yeah, we're just going to walk over them, coming off a Carabao Cup, a Milk Cup victory, go ahead, man. Go right on ahead. And for us to just like the guys who were involved too, just for Mo to get the record over Fowler, the Premier League goal scoring record for Liverpool, for Darwin, all the slander he'd been receiving beginning of the year, especially from mainly from United fans about that signing. Especially because I think even the funnier aspect of the script is that we kind of pipped United for both Gakpo and Nunez. Like they were in on both of those guys till the very end for a while, especially Gakpo. I think everyone thought he was going to go to United. For us to just sneak in there, like no one expected that to just happen the day it happened. Like the rumors came out about Gakpo Griff the day that he got signed. Like they came out like hours before he ended up getting signed. That's how we got Fabinho from United too. He was going to go to United. People thought same day rumors come out that we're into him, we sign him. So I just think that's also pretty funny, a nice touch that those two young attackers that we just got both scored braces against them and really just shut them up. Like that's just beautiful to see.
I'm gonna make kind of a cringe comparison because it's like, of course, I have to tie it back to Minnesota stuff, but
go for it, man. Go for it. Let's go.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of this year, the Vikings going into Lambeau, second to last game of the year, where like we have a really good record. Packers like traditionally even better than us. They're not having a good year. We're like super high and flying, and we just get railed in Lambeau.
Okay.
Like what was it?
Okay.
42-7 or something. I mean, like, and like, I know me and you were not like, I didn't even think we'd win that game, but I know there's a ton of Vikings fans who were like, yeah, man, like, fuck the Pack, like, Rodgers is washed, we're gonna kick their ass.
41-17. Yeah, that was a humbling.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that, just like being a little bit too like high money, like the little brother is like doing well and like going in, and then like you go into like your kind of old rivals like house, you just kind of like smack down a little bit, kind of put in your place, so. I imagine like that was a very satisfying win for the Packer faithful. So, yeah, I am
until the week after. That was even better.
Oh, that was better. That.
I hope
that wasn't the highlight of the year for me, but that was like top 3.
I mean, I'll fall back a bit on that just because we had such a great year. But that was like non-Vikings moments. That's like the best moment. Just top like 3. the Lions. Let's go.
I love the Lions too. Like I've always liked the Lions. Like beating them in like a winner takes all game in Lambeau. To like Aaron Rodgers' career there.
Ugh. Yeah, I mean, if to extend this analogy, I'm really going to hope that Lions-Packer game isn't emblematic of our Saturday morning fixture against Bournemouth this week. It would be frustrating if we
I doubt it.
drop against Bournemouth. I mean, let's talk about that Arsenal game a little bit, man. I mean, that game was ridiculous. Them scoring within 10 seconds, going up 2-0, and then Reece Nelson, a guy who he's been a young academy kid there for a while, comes on, scores 2 goals. Or no, he scored 1 goal, I think. But he assisted another one, I'm pretty sure, to Ben White. Just ridiculous goal. Ridiculous energy in that arena. I mean, I'm sure that had to pain you greatly being a Spurs fan watching that. But on an objective level,
I've let it go, Vic, at this point. You just kind of let it wash over you.
Yeah. I mean,
embrace it.
That was really, really incredible. I, for one, missed 80 minutes of that game, but I watched the last 15, and watching that live was pretty insane. Watching the reaction of everybody in the stands. Arteta just, I don't even know what the hell he did, but he was having a good time. The whole team was having a good time. Yeah, man. I mean, with the implications of the title race, how that affects things. I mean, Arsenal are currently 5 points ahead. 5 points ahead. Jeez. They got the same amount of matches played. You can effectively say with that Liverpool win over United that United are out of the title race. I mean, weeks ago when we talked about it then, they were on the fringes. They were honestly more than on the fringes to an extent, but they're out of it now. They're 14 back. So
Yeah, no, it's over.
top four was really spicy now with that Liverpool win over United. I mean, you're only 3 points behind of you lot, Tottenham Hotspur, with a game in hand. I think the team I'm most worried about, though, within the whole mix of top four, though, is Brighton. They're a team that worries me. They have
More than Newcastle?
I'm not as worried about Newcastle anymore. They haven't won in how long? They're just Brighton have more wins than Newcastle do at this point too. But I think with Brighton, they have 2 games in hand on us, 3 in hand on Spurs. They're at 38 points. So if they theoretically won all their matches, they'd have more points than Spurs do with the same amount of games played. Like, looking at it after 26 games played.
Wow,
so
they've been that good, huh? That's insane.
Yeah. So they're the team I'm most worried about. As you said a little earlier, with how this type of win for Liverpool could propel them to top four, I'm of that opinion. I mean, I think we're starting to figure things out a little bit with the attack. We're going to get Diaz back pretty soon here, it seems.
Big
Having
addition.
him, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if he starts, dude. I mean, that Nunez, Gakpo, Salah front three was incredible. Those guys were just buzzing in that match, and Gakpo he truly fills just kind of. I'm not saying he's going to be Firmino 2.0, but a lot of things that he does, working through the channels, kind of deep lying, a little more playing a little deeper, making play up. Like, he has some elements of Firmino in him, and I think that's more irreplaceable than Nunez for Diaz or even Jota, or just the amount of attackers we have now when we're fully healthy. We have 6 capable attackers who are on any given day really, really damn good.
This is not the Liverpool teams of old that had Shaqiri coming off the bench.
No, it's not. That was a tough time for us. How successful as we were then. That was an interesting time.
Funny. Pretty funny.
Yeah.
It's like, who's that diminutive little Mighty Mouse coming on? Oh, there he is. Swiss.
Biggest calves in the history of sports, dude. That dude's calves were fucking huge.
He's built like a truck, dude. He's fucking sick. I love Shaqiri. I think he's in MLS now.
He's in Chicago. Yeah, Chicago Fire. I have to go catch him sometime. Pay my respects. But yeah, man. I mean, a game like that. I mean, propelling us top four is very much in the cards. I think we should be getting favorites at this point, with kind of how Spurs have been languishing over the last few weeks. Honestly, more than a few weeks. So it's gonna be fun, man. That game brought me life back into the season. I mean, I even have a semblance of hope now. I'm almost like Brandon now, where even I have like the tiniest crumb of hope that we could do something.
A tiny crumb.
Just the crumb, just one crumb.
Spare some hope, please. Please, sir.
Please. Yeah, literally, dude. Wow. It's like, we're not gonna beat them, but I mean, I could see us scoring 2 goals in the Bernabeu. It's just about whether we can keep a clean sheet. I will say, dude, Konate being back is huge for this team. He's a boss back there. Him and Van Dijk together, they just seem so resolute. Compared to Gomez and Matip, it's all relative. But I think Konate's a great young defender, so getting him back's huge. And
yeah.
Hopefully,
I don't honestly, like, I'm about as scared as Liverpool as anybody when I play them. But like, the idea of like even if like a freak result, like if you guys win 3-0 the Bernabeu, that'd only be a tie to go to extra time. It's like, God, it's just,
it's really unlikely.
It's just so difficult. Like, and then if you give up one now, it has to be 4-1 just to like get to extra time. Like,
yeah, dude, we gotta channel what Chelsea did in the second leg. I mean, they were down 2-0, losing at home in the first leg, go in the second leg, go up 3-2, and Rodrigo scores a goal, or Benzema scores a goal, it goes to extra time. They win it there with their dark magic, Champions League magic. But yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna say we're gonna win at all. Hell no. But I mean, I just have like I have like 2% more optimism than I had before. I had like 0 before. So
if you guys get the first goal, in like the first 30 minutes or something, like I think that's, now you have a chance where it's like, hey, you put a little bit of fear, a little bit of doubt in them. Yeah.
It only took 10. It only took 10 against Barca when we did it 4 years ago. That was at home, granted, but I mean, it only took us 10 minutes to get that first goal. So, as you said, that means everything. So, should be fun, man. Looking forward to top 4 coming up here. Let's see what the schedule for this weekend is. I don't know what's coming up here. Yeah, we play Bournemouth away. Interesting matches. You guys play Forest at home. I would expect Spurs to walk over Forest, but this year,
I don't know. Forest was playing better recently.
Yeah, if it was at Nottingham, I wouldn't give you guys actually much of a chance. But I think being at home, I could see it being like a 3 or 4-0, one of those results that they get every so often. I don't know. I just think that Forest have had those in them this year where they've given up a lot of goals away.
That's
So
true.
we'll see.
That's true. We'll see. I'm always pessimistic when it comes to Spurs, so maybe they'll do
Yeah,
better.
I think the match of the weekend, dude, Fulham Arsenal at Craven Cottage. That's gonna be fun. Fulham are fun, man. I mean, I hope they make Europa. That would be great. Or conference. But I mean, they're seventh currently, so they're in pretty good form. Yeah, it'd be a big test for Arsenal. I don't think anybody would have said that. I mean, no, I don't think many people would have said Arsenal would be leading the league in March, beginning of the year either. But I mean, for Fulham to be seventh at this point of the year too, that's a pretty impressive feat in its own right.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, no, they're fun. I think that's probably the match. And anytime I can push Mitrovic propaganda, I will. Big fan. Maybe once Kane leaves, we can use the money to buy Mitrovic. But we'll see.
That'd be nice, actually. You guys have you guys already have a Serbian? I don't think you do.
I don't think so. We have a
Yeah,
lot of
Perisic, yeah.
Yeah,
y'all got
close.
Perisic.
That's not good though. I don't think the Balkans.
Oh, it wouldn't be good. No, it wouldn't be good. But yeah, man. I mean, overall, just really great weekend with soccer last weekend as a Liverpool fan, especially. Yeah, it's got me juiced for the rest of the season now. I mean, we got 2.5 months to go here. I can change. I still am going to stick to my top 4 predictions of Liverpool getting fourth, but we'll see, man. We'll see. I think I predicted City to win the league in our last pod. I'm still feeling a little less confident about that now, but I'll stick by it for now because Arsenal's away fixtures in April, as we talked about then. It's pretty wild. They still got to come to Anfield in a month, man. That's going to be an event. That's going to be a big motion picture right there. I cannot wait for that match. It's kind of funny, Griff. We actually have a 3-week break in the season. Liverpool do, at least, after Bournemouth. Our Fulham match got postponed, and there's an international break, I think. So after March 11th, which is the day of our game this weekend, we don't play until that Arsenal match, like April 4th or something.
Wow.
Really weird. Yeah, a lot of time off. So we'll get, if Diaz doesn't come back this weekend, he'll probably come back by then. So
for sure.
So
exciting.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. I guess we can just end off on here. Is that what we had to say? I don't need to talk about alt-right Jokic or Ja Morant any longer. We left that aside.
We should have a political hour, Vig. Last couple minutes.
I mean, I don't also want to talk about Achraf Hakimi either. We don't really need to go into those allegations.
I didn't see that, so.
I mean, long story short, he probably is a rapist, but we'll leave it at that.
Oh. Damn it.
He's not good for him. He played today, though.
He's sick.
He played today, though. That's the thing. I wonder what the I need to look into that a bit more after this. Like, he played today. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a Thomas Partey situation, but I think it's a lot more, credibility to what Kimi did than what Partey did. I don't even know what happened with that. But, yeah, man, anyway, it's pretty interesting. PSG, just their downfall continues. It's pretty great.
And no one is crying. Everyone is happy.
No, not doing the crybaby voice tonight.
No,
not happening.
Not happening. Not happening.
And on that note, I think we should sign off here. It's been a good one.
All right.
Hopefully we can get on sometime soon, man. Go on with some more, maybe wild hockey talk.
They're. I don't know. They win today.
Did you what?
They played the Jets today. So I was talking about. They did. They beat Winnipeg today, which is actually a big win, in Winnipeg. So they're playing better. Probably like a preview pod or something in a couple months, but we're not really hockey fans till the playoffs, so we can wait till then. But
that's me. I mean, I can't speak for yourself, Montana boy, but
I've probably watched like 3 wild games this whole year. I don't know.
There we go.
So, all right, man.
Soon, man. All right, Grigg and Rig signing off.
Grigg and Rig signing.